What person did you admire until they did a thing? And vice versa. I have Bill Cosby tattooed on my arm. The reason why is because 10 years ago, I broke up with a long-term girlfriend, moved back into my parents' basement, worked my butt off and went back to school. After closing down the restaurant I waited tables at, I'd get home at around 11 o'clock and watch an hour to an hour and a half of the Cosby Show before passing out. It was the only thing on at the time. So at that point, Dr. Huxtable was a moral compass and a big part of my life. I had him permanently embedded under my skin. He was America's father figure. How could that wind up being an issue down the road? Spoiler, it wound up being an issue. Dr. Huxtable still is a moral compass. That's who you have tattooed on you, not Bill Cosby. There was a guy I knew growing up that taught me a bunch of stuff. Taught me the basics of fabrication. Gave me a bunch of good advice about running a business. He was just someone I really respected. His wife got cancer and he divorced her and started dating someone my age. It was a really crappy thing to do. She beat it and is generally happy from what I know, and his life is one train wreck after another. I used to not really have much respect for my brother's girlfriend because he and her are drug users. But one time I was passing through their city on my way to visit my dad, so I stopped to see my brother. Well, when I got there my brother wasn't there, but she was. When my brother finally showed up, she pretty much kicked him out because he was high and she was telling him no way in heck is he coming in the house with drugs on him while me and my kids, his nieces, were there, and if he could go without drugs for a few hours while we were there then he needed to kick rocks. She was saying it was really fricked up to bring drugs in a house that my kids were in and all that. I really gained a lot of respect for her at that point. Teacher I knew for years since I was probably 13. I'm now 30 and saw him on the regular after graduating and everything. This guy taught me a lot of interesting things and helped prepare me for some of the things Shook doesn't teach you about. But lost all respect for the man last year when it was found out that he was in possession of homemade child pee. That'll kill just about any good feelings you have for someone quick. That's so horrible. Something similar happened to me and a history teacher I liked admired. He was jailed for pressuring underage students to send him nudes in exchange for better grades. My uncle. When I was young he'd play action figures with me. He joined the army when I was in the 3rd or 4th grade. He used to write to me from Kosovo and send pictures. When he got back he ended up getting married and had his first kid. I would see him at family get-together and whatnot. He got a job at a university doing IT type stuff and he would build computers as a side gig and donate them to places or people, and I would come over often to learn how to build computers from him. In 2013 he lost his job. He did some stuff at the university he shouldn't have, buying parts and not logging it or something. From there he went into a downward spiral and started doing M. His wife took their 2 kids and left him in their house. One time I came to visit with my parents and he had painted all over the walls. Handprints everywhere in the bedroom. He had written I love you and painted a heart in red paint. He had taken a sledgehammer and put holes in his wall. He told us he would be up all night and day only sleeping a few hours at a time. He would paint and play piano at all hours. It was haunting to see. He ended up living with my grandparents and I hung out with him a lot. I gave support and I helped him through a massive breakdown that happened when my parents were gone. Eventually I thought he had gotten better, but he was still using and stole a lot of things from my parents and a few items from me, and would sell them at pawn shops. When he finally got his crap together he turned to religion and went way overviews with it. He would preach a lot, and he developed this I'm better than you type attitude. All the while he would still steal crap. It wasn't the drugs that made me lose respect for him. It was the fact that he would steal and yet claim to be some kind of righteous person. All while still doing drugs, and it frustrates me how hypocritical he is. My mom's husband was like this. It's so infuriating. A close friend of mine was set up on a blind date with my toxic, abusive ex-boyfriend in November. Once I found out, December-ish, I told her in detail all the horrible things that happened during our relationship. How he made me feel crazy from all the deceit and gaslighting, and how it made me act like a total psychopath. I wasn't trying to break them up. I just wanted her to make an informed decision about dating him. She said she'd think on it and a week later told me she broke things off with him because it is important to her to stand by her friends who have been wronged and be She doesn't ever want to choose between inviting a friend or a partner to things. I found out a few weeks ago that she has been dating him for 6 months and didn't tell me. For the vice versa part, I always thought Dale Chihuly's art was lazy garbage until I saw it in person and was swiftly and extremely humbled. I went to school for glass blowing, and just seeing pictures of his work looking all messy and stuff, I didn't get it. I get it now. Quentin Tarantino is an egocentric douchebag with little to no regard for anyone besides himself. Despite this, his interview he did after the Weinstein scandal broke really surprised me. This is heavily paraphrased, but, interviewer, what stopped you from confronting Harvey about the rumors? Tarantino, it doesn't matter. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to apologize and acknowledge that what I did was wrong and inexcusable. Tarantino might be a grade A butthole, but he's pretty self-aware. Davy Crockett in the original Disney movie, he spends the first half of the movie being a complete champ, and then when his wife dies, he abandons his children and immediately begins running for Congress like they weren't even a blip on his radar. Think about that. His kids would have heard of their dad running for Congress and winning, without him ever visiting them again. Then, he goes off on a suicidal road trip to Texas, dooming his children to be orphans. Davy Crockett, king of the wild parental abandonment frontier. Historically, Crockett remarried soon after his first wife died and didn't get into politics until some years later. When I was around 8, I went over to my grandparents' house, and their daughter, around 17, was living there. She had a boyfriend named Philip. Philip was nice to me and taught me a secret in a Mario game. Then I learned he went to jail for stabbing 3 people, killing 2 of them, about 3 months after I last saw him. Justin, for your information, your grandparents' daughter would be your aunt. I had this awesome doctor when I was a teenager. He was cool, always insisted on examining me without mum present so I'd answer the awkward questions truthfully. We shot the crap a few times, shared a beer at a family function once when I was underage. I liked the guy. Then he cheated on his wife with the receptionist and moved to Thailand without telling anyone. Lost all my medical records and it's just a dong move to his wife. Crazy how the people we see in everyday life can be so different than what we think they are. Oh boy, I thought this was gonna go in a different direction based on the first half. I had a boss once who I thought was really cool, then we went out to lunch. He was a total butthole to the server for no reason. I was only a couple years past working my own minimum wage customer service jobs. Hard to respect someone when you know they would have treated you much worse if they had met you a couple years earlier. Holy crap, I have a fantastic story for this one. My wife and I are the editors-in-chief for our college literature magazine. Over the course of the semester, we had meetings, emails, and open mics. At every single possible turn, we reminded our content editors for the deadlines required for the magazine. I had a budding friendship with one editor in particular. The guy seemed like he was the coolest mother ever. We chat at the open mics, and even just chill out on campus and talk. Well, apparently he didn't get the memo with the deadlines, and about a week and a half after pics were due, he hadn't sent a scrap. So I sent him an email just to check in and ask how things were coming along. I gave him another week, which was literally the most time I could, and still get the magazine out on time. Offered help, which I had already been offering all semester long, but he said he was fine, and just tried to touch base with where he was at in the process. I got this email in response. Names redacted. Hello. I find the way you are leading and the way things are being worded and handled to be rude and amateur. I was already on the fence about even wanting to do this year, as I'm sure you recall. However, I made a commitment that I intend to fulfill. I will have your work for Wednesday, because I feel morally obligated to and for no other reason. Thank you. So yeah, he fits this question for me. Kat Von D. Thought she was really cool, starting a vegan beauty line and all that. Turns out she's an anti-vaxxer and won't be vaccinating her kid. Pass. I really admired Jesse Lacey, lead singer of Brand New, until it came out that he was soliciting nudes from underage girls over Skype. I still think he's a legendary songwriter, but as a person I think he's pretty crappy. I have a really good friend and am very close with his immediate and extended family. They have a lot of parties at his grandma's house. At these parties, a lot of their friends from the old block or from grade school come around. This is how I met Thing 1, M, and Thing 2, F. They're married. They are both really cool and funny, both nerdy and teach coding at a local college. They got me interested in it enough to take a class with my friend. Thing 2's sister's daughter has severe cerebral palsy. She can't really do anything for herself. Thing 2's sister is also really freaking cool. She comes to the parties as well and brings her daughter along. She is really funny and probably the strongest and kindest person you will ever meet. About 1-2 years after meeting Thing 1 and Thing 2, I learned that Thing 1 used to be married to Thing 2's sister and he is the father of her disabled child. Why didn't I know this? Why did it take so long to figure this out? A couple reasons. Thing 2's sister was obviously wanted to keep her sister in her life badly enough that she seemed to either completely forgive her sister or attempted to forget it. So when they are together, they seem to genuinely care for each other and don't seem to have any animosity towards each other. Also, Thing 1 never interacts with his daughter, ever. Never helped his ex-wife take her to the bathroom or move her out of her wheelchair or feed her. Nothing. No contact with his own daughter when they are in the same freaking room. He may have forgiven Thing 1 and Thing 2, but I just can't. There was this guy in my second year of college. He looked really pale and skinny, and the way he stared at people was as if he despised them. It didn't look like he wanted to socialize with anyone and was a bit in his world. Basically he wasn't mean to me or anyone in particular, but he would ignore people unless when it came to ask for courses he missed. He missed many and would leave in middle of a class. I saw him as a bit of a lazy freeloader. Few months later, I see him not coming to class anymore and I actually heard from a girl that was a bit close to him that he had Crohn's disease and he had been taking many drugs, cortisone, Xanax, immunosuppressors. I just felt bad at that point. He had never mentioned it to anyone, except for that girl I guess. The year after, he seemed to be in way better state. His personality remained a bit distant but you could feel that he had gained some rest and could genuinely smile. He turned out to be the most interesting person I met that year and I really enjoyed to have him around. Somehow, he still has the same look in the eyes as when I met him, but I just know he's seen some crap. Literally. He was probably in pain constantly. I'm sure that affects one's mood and personality. My JROTC instructor from high school. He literally was the definition of a son. Helped so many students get their crap together. Helped one get their good and join the military. Helped me when it comes to social skills and talking to the ladies. Turned some kid who went to juvenile detention twice into a grown butt man who respected everyone around him and into a BC student. He even helped many undocumented teens join the military and helped them get their paperwork in order. Seriously, he was a freaking son to us. Got paid a crap ton as well. About 100k a year as a JROTC instructor and on top of that had retirement pay from the US Army which was about 15k to 20k a year. Wonderful family. Beautiful wife. Kick-ass home. He has a new car every year as well. Years later, he transferred school. Had sex with a 14-year-old. If I remember correctly he paid a hefty bail price and is now on house arrest. IDK, what is happening now? I just wish for the best for his family. They don't deserve this at all. As for him, I hope he gets what's coming to him. Something similar happened with my high school history teacher. It's crazy how people compartmentalize themselves. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of a thing. Vice versa. Channing Tatum. Maybe this was just due to me being younger and less mature, but when he first started making it big, I didn't like him. Not that I hated him or anything. I honestly don't know if I had even seen any of his movies, but he just seemed like a pretty face and he was the stereotypical hunk with nothing to him. Then he did 21 Jump Street. He was absolutely hysterical in it. Then his little cameo in This Is the End just sealed the deal for me. Any actor who's willing to film that kind of a cameo, I have a lot of respect for someone who's willing to go that far to make people laugh. I absolutely love him now and the fact that he's in a movie is now enough of a reason for me to watch that movie. Really friggin' wish they would get that Gambit movie going. I had an aunt, H, that lived with us. She was a quasi third parent. If she grounded you, the others backed her. Her authority was not in question. She was really nice and all that the whole time we grew up. Once my sister and I were of age, mom suggested she get her own place because they were starting to grind at each other's nerves. Aunt H was livid and swore my father, now deceased, promised she'd always have a place in the house. She did move out and started proceedings to sue my mother for 1/3 the value of the house. She claimed between assisting with us kids and the renovations they all did she deserved that much. I will repeat, she wanted to sue my mother, her sister, in such a way that she would have to sell the home she worked on making just as she and my dad liked, and the initial core of her argument was inadmissible in court, unless they allow the result of a sentence. And when she tried a more sane approach, she wanted me to help her sue my mother. Did I mention I'd had to go back due to some trouble and was living in the house hanging in the balance at the time with my mother? Sadly, mom had to settle for about $30,000 and put out another mortgage because H's lawyer was only paid when she won. So she would draw this out as long as possible, while my mom had to pay for legal representation month to month. Once H got the money, she tried to move back to Montreal and was somehow surprised that none of her other sisters wanted to spend any time with her. Maybe a little bit of a different definition of admire, but I never understood why people thought Channing Tatum was attractive until I saw him dressed as Beyonce on Lip Sync Battle. Anyone who's willing to have fun with life and not take themselves seriously is attractive in my eyes. My cross-country coach. He was hard, but fair. During my first year, he was very supportive and always promoted to help others who are struggling, etc. The next year, something in him snapped. I don't know if it was something in his family life or if he was just hiding this all along, but he turned out to be a grade A douchebag. I could list them all, but it would take a long while, so I'll try to keep it brief. During summer training, and my third year on the team, now a senior, he pulled me aside and said he wanted me to be the cross-country captain, or one of them. We always had multiple and they were always the seniors. I was nervous since I wasn't the best runner on the team, and he said that didn't matter. He knew I was ready and that I'd be a good leader to them. So I bucked up and said okay. The next practice, he announces me as a captain in front of 1/3 of our team. Lots of other kids were on vacation. My cousin was on the team, and my sister drove, so they all heard this. Well, after leading the practice with little trouble, the next practice was after school started and he announced that they were doing something different this year in that they were going to elect a team captain. I was extremely non-confrontational and confused, so I tried to ask him what happened, but he would avoid me. When pressed, he would say the team has the right to decide, which hey, that's fair, but why tell me that and then lie about it? So my mom sent an email to the coaches stating my family and the others present as witnesses, and this is what she got back. Dear, redacted, I don't know what to say to you. I had a talk with your daughter in the summer and I guess she must have misinterpreted that in her mind. It's also a shame that she believed it so much to convince her family to lie on her behalf. But I assure you, it isn't true. I could have strangled him. I didn't care about being captain, but him calling my family liars was crossing the line. Nobody talks crap about my family. My mom knew he was the pathological liar, of course, because we had other witnesses and she believed me, but this was just a drop in the bucket. He is the biggest ball of human pond scum I've ever met, and it has taken a very long time for me to let this go. I'm still trying, as you can see. I kinda want more stories if you're willing to share. What a man-child. Guy I worked with. He had skills, was charismatic, fun to work with, was helping a mutual friend of ours whose life was in an alcoholic spiral. After a prank from mutual friend, decided his revenge would be banging dude's ex-wife. Then he made the paper in a drug bust. Don't really admire him after that. I gotta know this prank. Robin Williams. Not that I don't admire his work now, but that admiration has largely been replaced with crushing empathy and remorse sadness. To be fair, I think this is why he didn't want to tell anyone about his illness. If you can, try to enjoy his work without the pity. Don't let his death upstage his life. There was a bully in my class back in middle school. He didn't single me out or anything, was just a general douchebag to everyone. About halfway through 6th grade, I'd had enough. He shoved me while I standing off to the side watching some people shoot some hoops, and I lost my temper. I whipped around and tackled into him, and just kept pushing for 30 feet while he couldn't get his balance back to stop it. That was the only time I ever snapped at school. That's all. There was no fight, just me pushing us 30 feet and walking away, still shaking with rage. All that was to illustrate how awful he was. I've never been violent with anyone else due to anger before or since. Just him. He alone was able to provoke anger in the mild-mannered skinny nerd. Cut forward 5 years, junior year of high school. He hasn't bothered me directly, but he's still a colossal jerk. He goes and gets his girlfriend pregnant. My disgust matures into utter contempt. Jump another 6 years. I'm home for the summer, at Walmart for some reason, and I see them walking to checkout. Douchebag pushing the cart one-handed. Pregnant yet again wife. I can see their rings. A young girl that looks like she might start bouncing with energy at any second. And a little toddler trying stubbornly to walk without accepting daddy's or mommy's hand for stability. They look rather careworn, yet happy. Contempt gone. Redemption successful. Way to go, dad and mom, for turning a new leaf and pulling through. Tony fucking Blair. I cannot tell you what it was like in 1997 being able to vote, ditch the Tories, change the country, embrace a passionate and young leader who led change and made life actually better for a lot of people in our country. It was like being on a high and lasted a few years until, well, frick that guy. I now have zero tolerance or respect for any politicians. Didn't help I switched to vote for Nick Clegg in 2010. FFS. This could have been my comment. I was so full of hope, and when he showed his true colors, any hope I have in politics or democracy died forever. My late mother's ex-husband, who treated me like a daughter more so than my biological father, stayed in contact with me after my mom had a psychotic break and left him, almost in financial ruin. He said he'd always be there for me. Last year after my mom killed herself he ghosted me. TBF, he may have been mentally exhausted from the whole thing. Maybe he'll show himself at some point and give an explanation to his actions. Hopefully. There was a girl in my home economics class who was really cool. She was cute, smart and the neat type, you know? I was talking to her one day and the topic of gay marriage came up in the conversation, and she stated that she hated gay people and that she would never support gay marriage, and that if anyone she knew ended up being gay she would disassociate herself with them. Absolutely killed everything I had for her. It's insane how sometimes you can go from being super into someone to wanting nothing to do with them at all at the drop of a coin over one simple interaction. I've had romantic interests that fizzled out instantly after hearing them say like one thing. I was a big fan of Shakerl from YouTube. I wanted my family to be like his. I wanted to have his drive and motivation. Everything seemed so great. He vlogged every day. Surely he couldn't be hiding anything. Then he cheated on his beautiful wife and was admitted for alcoholism. I just can't look at him the same anymore. I used to be buds with the owner of a little record shop by my house. Once I stayed up until 1 AM making a zine in the back room, alone with him. I admired his musical knowledge and openness about things. That is, until I found out he had raped someone in the local music scene. Never went back again. My last boss seemed like a nice person, respectable, hardworking and competent. But one day we were going out to have lunch together and I heard him talking to another guy about how he thought black people stink. He wasn't trying to sugarcoat it or even lowering his voice. He straight out said it out loud like it was trivial. I lost all my respect for him and any motivation to work for him that second. I had this teacher in junior high. He taught band. I joined and was in percussion. He was always so awesome, so chill and funny, and he inspired me a lot with music. I ended up growing up and moving out of state, but still loved that guy. Then I started seeing my friends back where I used to live, posting about how he had gone missing. It was the middle of winter, below zero temperatures. Everyone was terrified because he hadn't shown up to his junior high class that day, and didn't call out or anything. And everyone thought he had been in some terrible accident and was trapped in a snowbank somewhere freezing to death. Everyone got search teams together and stuff to find him. Weeks went by, and then finally it started coming out what had really happened. He just up and left, moved to a different state, left his wife and mentally disabled son behind, and didn't tell them what he was doing. He just disappeared. They probably thought he was dead for weeks, but no, he just ran away from life. I'm bitter. If I saw him today I'd hit him. My mom and I were out playing in the snow when I was about 10 years old and heard someone yelling for help. It was our neighbor, who had fallen on the ice and broke her leg. This was before everyone had cell phones all the time, so she had laid out there for a while before we found her. When my mom called her husband, a local pastor who had always been so nice to me and the other neighborhood kids, he acted like it was the biggest inconvenience in the world. When he got home, my mom mentioned jokingly that his wife deserved some flowers and he responded with, "She'll get flowers at her funeral." Even as a 10-year-old I thought that was pretty crappy and I never respected him after that. He was a pastor. You're lucky you escaped unscathed. My brother. We're brothers from another mother, literally same dad different mom. He's 8 years my senior. My mom went Mia, so I moved in with my dad when I was 14. My bro and his wife rented a house literally 3 doors down, no pun intended, with my pops having a penchant for Jack Daniels. Crank and driving a rig being gone for a couple weeks sometimes made for pretty tumultuous teenage years. So I spent most of my time at his house. My big bro taught me everything. How to work on cars, ride motorcycles, how to work hard, of course fight with brothers of course, but most importantly, to have convictions and stand by them. You can lose everything in this world no matter how hard you try to hold it, accept your word and don't cheat yourself. We're the ones that stick. Well, big bro starts his own business, makes a bit of coin, turns 34 and has a midlife crisis straight out of the movies, buys a Corvette, starts taking testosterone. My family are the last people who need more testosterone. Starts cheating on his beautiful wife with some broads who don't even hold a light to her with 2 kids at home. Pretty much doing everything our dad did and going back on everything he said and taught me when I was younger. Crap broke my heart and left me lost. Dude was my father figure role model and he crap on everything I thought he was. Quit working for him, took off and didn't speak to him for 2 years until he started to pull his head out of his butt. He changed though overall. After the money came in, out went his convictions. He's got a business mentality now. Money is the only thing that matters when it comes down to it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.